Hi everyone, it's Kristy here from KristyCoromandel.com. Now this is going to seem like a real dumb thing to do, like filling an area, but it's actually a really important thing to learn, and there's actually different ways to do it. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I know to do it. So I'm doing this in large boxes, so it's a little bit more challenging for me to do it in large boxes, but I wanted to be able to sit and chat while we did this and talk about this in a little bit. So this technique is using little circles, and with a very small area it's going to go along a little faster and a little bit smoother because you're working in a tinier space. But the whole idea is to keep the edge of that marker wet, that marker line. So where it's wet, it's where it's going to blend. And as this blend happens in the paper, so if you can just picture diving deep into the sheet of paper with all that pulp, that's where you want all that moisture to be. Now on the back of the paper, you're always going to probably see a varying amount of color or marker coming through. That's perfectly normal. So the thicker your cardstock is, so like if you're using the thick Whisper White cardstock, you're going to see less of that than what you would using the normal Whisper White cardstock. So depending on which cardstock you use, they're going to react differently. So as you can see, as I'm going through this over again, it's going a lot more smoother. So in a smaller area, it is going to be smoother even more again. So you do want to make sure that when you are doing your circles that they're nice, small and tight. You don't want them really big like this here is, like that I'm doing an example here with having lots of gaps, because as you go over it, you're not going to be able to blend very well, and you're going to have that those gaps of dark and light shades amongst your picture. So as you can see here, as I'm going over it a bit more, you can now see where that shading is not very smooth, very accurate. So make sure that when you're doing your little circles that they're nice and tight and that you're going over that wet line as well. So next is what I do more often is creating marker strokes to fill in an area. So the direction that it goes in doesn't really matter a whole lot, but you're simply just filling in an area. So you can see in a few minutes that my technique for doing this is filling in an area first with a lighter color and then adding your shades to it. So as you can see here, I'm going over a second time. You can see more blending going on. It's becoming more and more smoother. You can go faster this way in my book. So I'm a little bit more about going faster in that sense because I like to get into the fun stuff, all that detail and coloring and shading. So I usually don't spend a lot of time on my first coat. Next, we're going to look at the flick or the feathering technique. There's a lot of different names for it, but it's really an important technique for layering down the marker. So you lay it kind of on its side and you get about 2/3 of the marker touching the paper, and you lift up as you make that stroke. Now some people can only do the flick in one direction or the other, so they can only go up or they can go down. So if you find it works better on one way than on another, then just turn your paper around the other way. So as you see here, I've got a different color. So as you can see, as different colors are going to give you different effects. So this is a lighter color, and as you keep doing your flick nicely, you don't really have to do any crazy stuff with blending a color into a white area. Now here's my typical technique for coloring. Almost everything I do, I will start with a coat of the lightest color first, and then I start doing layering on top. So here I'm starting with my light color of my duo marker, and I'm not really being special careful here with the blending with the above or below or trying to make it really smooth, because here I'm going to be able to do that now. So I'm taking my dark marker now and I'm adding my shadows, and I'm using the flick technique and adding those from the bottom. So let's look at some 2-shade marking. So I am using a lighter color now and flicking from the top all the way down, and where those two meet is where the blending happens. So this, sometimes you might have to do this over and over again, and sometimes called the pendulum technique, and I'm doing it like back and forth across that area from top to bottom. So as you can see, if I color it over a lot, that color started to become one color. So now I'm going to go back in with my dark again, which is perfectly fine to do, but just remember the more and more you go back over it again and again, the more possibilities you have for bleeding, sorry. So you don't want to go too many times, but as again, this is large areas that I'm shading, and it will look so much better when you start doing your smaller stamped images. So there are circumstances where I may start with my darkest color first and not my lightest. And this is often when I'm trying to shade into white, when I don't really want a base color over everything. Or if my color of my object is so light that I don't want to have that extra layer of color underneath everything, because that's just going to darken the whole image. So if I want it to be a lighter, fresh image, then I'll end up starting with my dark color so I don't put too much color on my project. So I just keep going over and over things a number of times until I get the look that I like. So there you have it. 3 tips on blending with your Stampin' Blends. So why not download my practice sheet today and start blending? You can find the link right here at kristycoromandel.com/stampinblends. I'll see you again soon.